In today's video, I'm going to share with you my simple 5-step approach for finding and catching late summer smallmouth bass. Let's dive into this thing. Anytime you're fishing for summertime smallmouth, in particular late summertime smallmouth, it can be a very challenging but rewarding time of year to be on the water. You can go hours without catching fish and then unlock one piece of the puzzle and catch fish for the rest of the day. This can be a time of year where you catch no fish and then load the boat really quickly and then go through another lull. But it can be a great time of year to catch giants. And in today's video, I'm going to share with you that 5-step approach that I use to not only locate these fish, but consistently catch them throughout the day. Huge shout out to the guys at Goodfish Angler Co. I'm going to leave them linked down in the description below, but this is a really cool hat. St. Lawrence bronzebacks. Those guys just busted over 100 pounds of smallmouth out on the Bassmaster Elites, and the St. Lawrence is popping off right now. I think they're going to be offering some trips, so go over, check those guys out. Pick yourself up a hat if you want to pick up a sweet hat like this. But Goodfish Anglers Co., much appreciated for sending me this hat. Now, before we dive into the 5-step approach, I really want to start by defining what late summer smallmouth fishing means to me. And it's going to vary depending on where you live and the bodies of water that you fish. But normally what I'm looking for is that peak summer water temperature. The time of year when your water temperature is at its highest, or maybe even starting that decline into the summer to fall transition. On the Great Lakes, that could be anywhere from 74 degrees down to 67, but as you start to move inland, maybe that's 79, 80 degree water temps, and then pushing into that decline. But it's a very small window. Late summer smallmouth fishing for me is a very small window, small time of year when these fish are really at the extremes, and that's what we're going to talk about in this video, how to locate these fish and how to consistently find them, as well as where to find them during this late summer period. Now that's going to lead us into step number 1, which is find the bait and forage. This is the most important time of year for you to be staying around what those fish are feeding on, because as that water warms up, these bass, being cold-blooded creatures, their metabolism is going to ramp up as well, and so they need to feed more often. Now smallmouth by nature are nomadic. They like to chase and stay around that bait and forage, but as they need to consume more, they need to stay around that bait more often. So this is extremely critical, finding where that bait is and finding where that forage is. If you're fishing and you don't see bait flicking, or you don't see bait on your electronics, you're not around the right areas where these smallmouth are at. Now, I'm not necessarily talking about forward-facing sonar or your live scope, but it's definitely going to help you in locating where this bait and these bass are this time of year. You can also be really effective with this by using your eyes and using your 2D sonar, whether you're graphing out deep, looking for those big bait balls, those big bait pods, because your smallmouth are going to be nearby where all that bait and forage is. Now, while it's important to find the bait and the forage, it's going to lead us into point 2, which is cover water quickly. It's important to locate that bait because without it, there's not going to be bass there. But because there's bait there doesn't necessarily mean that bass are going to be at all of those locations. So you need to be able to cover these areas as quickly as possible and be willing to pull the plug and try something else. A lot of times these bass are going to be located in very small areas, and there's going to be a decent number of fish, pods of fish in these spots. But there's also going to be areas where it's just straight vacant of bass. Even though the bait's there, even though the forage is there, it seems to set up correctly, those bass may not be there on that particular day and time. So know when to pull the plug, cover water, try different things, and be willing to cover water quickly. Various areas, various locations, different depths, try different baits, and really cover that water quickly. Once you do get a bite, we're going to lead into point 3, which is slow down. When you get a bite in an area, there's a reason that fish was there, and typically there's more than one fish located in this spot. This, to me, is really the pinnacle of summertime fishing. This is when those fish are going to start to group up on those really deep spots, your extreme areas. When there's a fish there, there's going to be more than one. So once you locate a fish, be willing to sit in that area, 30 minutes to an hour and really start to pick it apart and try to get multiple bites. Because typically, where there's one fish right now, there's a big pot of fish, and this is a place where you can load the boat quickly. So catching a couple fish, starting to maximize that spot is going to lead us into point number 4. And that's really understand why those fish are there and look for the pattern in that spot that you can replicate throughout the day. And to me, this is the most important tip that I'm going to give you guys in today's video, because it's going to expand that bite window, expand your day, and allow you to replicate this bite. Is it a specific type of rock? Are they hanging around boulders? Maybe they're on that shallow to deep transition where there's a small turn in the bank. Start to really pick apart why these fish are there in the area they're in, because during the late summertime you can replicate this pattern. There are also some other key factors to really pay attention to this time of year, including wind. How is the wind blowing into the area that you're fishing? Certain winds this time of year are going to position fish differently. Pay attention to water temperature and clarity. Pay attention to depth. And you really want to pay attention to the bottom or the structure that you're fishing. So once you do start to get bit, slow down and really start to understand why those fish are there. Pay attention to the smallest details, because that could be the key that unlocks this pattern throughout the day. One of the best days I ever had in the late summertime was fishing this big point that comes out into the lake with a sand flat coming off of it and isolated boulders where these fish were hanging on. But as I fished the spot multiple times over the next couple of days, I started to realize the way that the wind would impact the way these fish set up. When you'd have wind pushing into that point, those fish would be tighter to the physical drop-off, and as the wind started to turn and change directions, these fish would change and rotate their orientation around that spot based on the direction that that wind was blowing into. They wanted to be on the push. And this is going to lead us into point number 5, which is being unique. Be unique not only in your bait selection, but in the areas you're fishing and the presentations you're using to target these fish. As you start to pressure these fish more, and they've been pressured all year long, you need to change your approaches a little bit and really start to focus in on the minute details that will separate you from all of the other anglers. Again, going back to the Bassmaster Elite, the guys that were doing really well in these highly pressured areas were the ones that were doing something a little different. It could have been downsizing. It could have been adding a scent to their bait. It could have been the way they were presenting their bait with the current to have it drift across these areas in a specific form or fashion. But paying attention to these key details and allowing their presentation or the way they fish these areas to be unique allowed them to catch bigger and more fish than other anglers in the area. So being unique at the end of the summertime when these fish have been super pressured is critically important. So go out there with a unique mindset and be willing to try different things that are going to put you maybe out of your comfort zone, are going to help you catch more and bigger bass. So that 5-step approach to not only locating but catching more late summertime smallmouth is find the bait in the forage, cover water quickly to locate where the bass are living, slow down to maximize the bite in the area that you're fishing, and then really pay attention to all of the details that went into allowing you to be successful. And finally, come up with a unique approach, whether it's in your bait or your presentation, that are going to separate you from other anglers. With these 5 steps, I really believe you can go out and have success during the late summertime chasing smallmouth bass on your bodies of water. If you want to see some unique approaches that I use during the late summertime, click this video right here. If you're not already subscribed, hit the subscribe button. It'll let you know when I post more videos just like this one. Thank you all so much for watching. I really appreciate each and every one of you guys. Take care, tight lions. God bless. Pursue your passion.